Okay, good morning. So in the previous class, we discussed about the different types of research design. Okay, so there are three types of research design. The one is known as the research design in case of the exploratory studies. Okay, and the second type is the research design in case of the descriptive and diagnostic research studies. And the third one, the research design in case of the hypothesis testing of the research studies. Okay, these are the three different types of research design, and also we discuss these things very elaboratively. And next, we also discussed about the basic principles of research design. Okay, these are called the Professor Fisher's, okay, the three principles for carrying out experiments. Okay, he identified the three basic principles which are to be considered for any research studies. Okay, those are very important. In many times in the examination they have been asked. Okay, what are the three basic principles of experimental design with respect to the Professor Fisher? Okay, so there are three principles. So the first principle, that is principle of replication, and the second one, the principle of randomization, and third one, the principle of local control. Okay, these three principles have been in detail have been explained in the previous class, and also I gave the examples for the each principles of the experimental design. Okay, today we'll discuss about the research plan, what the research plan consists of, and also what are the contents of the research report. Okay, these are the two very important and essential components of the research study. Okay, so then, so when the research plan is expected to be prepared. Okay, so once the problem is being identified, once the broad area has been defined, and the literature review has been carried out, and after identification of the problem, the main detailed problem of the research study, okay, then we need to identify the related tasks to be carried out with respect to the research problem. So at that time we need to prepare a research plan. Okay, so the researcher, so the research, with respect to this, the researcher will arrange his ideas in the order. Okay, the researcher, the research scholar, once he identify the research problem, he will arrange all the ideas which are coming into mind to carry out his research. They have to be arranged in a sequence, or they have to be arranged in an order, and also write them in the form of experimental plan. Okay, you need to express those ideas in the form of experimental plan, what can be described as research plan. Okay, so the research plan is a systematic arrangement of the research scholars or the research candidates ideas with respect to the problem which has been identified. That is called as a research plan, and this is the most very important and valuable document in connection with the new researchers, because the new researchers, they have been not exposed to the research areas, whereas for example, consider me. Okay, I have been in the research field since 15 years. Okay, we have been exposed to all varieties of the precautions and what to be need to be done when the problem is research problem is to be identified, because of the experience. Whereas the new researcher, he has been not exposed to the research. So for such candidates, so the research plan helps lot, okay, in the preparation or the putting his idea into the plan. Okay, so in what way this research plan helps a new researcher? The first one, it helps to organize his ideas in the forum, and where it will be help to him and look at some flaws or inadequacies during the course of his research plan. Okay, in course of his research research period. Okay, so he can, once he put his ideas into plan, and also he can predict what are the possible risks what are the possible flaws, what are the possible inadequacies may occur in future before he starts his research plan. The second one is it provides an inventory of what must be done and which materials have to be collected in the preliminary research period. Okay, and it gives a list of ideas, it gives list of materials, a list of information to be collected before he carry out his research. Okay, that is nothing but it acts as an inventory of information. So based on his research plan, he he will think that what all the materials or the information is expected to be collected in connection with his research. Okay, the third way by which a researcher could get help from this research plan is it is a document. It is the document that can give others for the comment. Okay, once I prepare the research plan, as I told you that research cannot be done alone. So, and also I told you that once the research plan or the research design is prepared, it must be circulated or it might be passed to the senior professors in your institute, or you can pass to the pass it to your guide also, and also you can pass this research plan and research design to the professors who are in your domain at various institutes like IITs and NITs for the review. Okay, so that they can give certain suggestions or certain improvement for your research plan that is to be considered, and finally we can prepare a strong research plan or the research design for continuation of research. If you do this, we will not going to face any issues or any flaws or any inadequacies during the tenure of our research. Okay, that's why it is a very important document. Okay, then what are the contents of the research plan? Okay, you are expected to note down one by one. There are 8 to 10 contents for this research plan. The first one. So the problem to be studied by a researcher must be explicitly stated so that one may know what information is to be obtained for solving the problem. Okay, that is nothing but one have to define the problem explicitly, very clearly, the problem of the research based on the literature review. Okay, and so that we'll come to know that how this problem can be solved and how this problem can be attained to reach or to solve the problem. So when the problem is being defined, okay, this is the first step in the research plan. Okay, if you want to circulate this research plan among your professors or in the other experts outside your institute, you need to prepare a research plan. First, you are expected to prepare the research problem. The second one, once the problem is identified, you are expected to define the research objectives. Okay, and also I told you that the research objective should be stated very clearly. Okay, very clearly after the problem is being identified, and the research objectives must be a maximum 3 to 5. Maximum 3 to 5. So those are to be clearly defined. That is the second step in the research plan. The third step in the research plan is that each major concept which the researcher wants to measure. Okay, the major concepts which the researcher wants to measure and should be defined in the operational terms in context to the research project. Okay, in context to the research project, what is intended to measure, that is to be clearly stated in the third point of the research plan. Then fourth, a plan should contain the method or the approach or the technique or the procedure. Okay, the fourth step is that the plan must define the method, approach, procedure, technique. Okay, the procedure in steps for solving the problem has to be clearly defined. Okay, that is known as that is the fourth step of the research plan. Then in the fifth step, the plan must state and detail the techniques to be adopted. Okay, there in the third step, we just defined what is the method, what is the technique, what is the tool, what is the procedure, what is the approach. But here we need to explain that approach or the procedure in detail. Okay, in detail. And if possible, we need to ask the senior professors about the technique which we are using, and we can ask them whether the technique is feasible or any other new technique, very advanced techniques are available that also to be hunted by talking to the senior professors of IIT and IISc, as well as going through the literature review. We can identify some of the newer tools and techniques and their procedures and their algorithms. Okay, that is to be discussed in the fourth step of the research plan. Then in the fifth, the research plan also state the details of the techniques being adopted. The techniques being adopted. Okay, that is the fifth step. Sorry, that is the fifth step. The plan that must contain the details of the research technique. Then the sixth one is the clear mention of the population to be studied, or the research, the sample design. We discussed very in detail about the sample design, what will be the sample size, what is the target population, what is the target market, what is the sample size, and what varieties of sample to be taken into consider, and how many number of observation to be performed. That all we will be discussing the sampling design. Okay, so with respect to the sample or with respect to the population, we are expected to write down about the research problem and about the research sampling plan in the sixth step. Then seventh step, the research the plan must also contain the methods to be used in processing the data. Okay, the data is one of the important information which is to be collected with respect to the research and could be analyzed. Okay, and it to be analyzed the research data which has been collected, and the data collection also cannot be randomly or vague. We cannot collect. Okay, we need to design some of the formats for the data collection such that we cannot omit the data which are necessary for further analysis and evaluation. Okay, so we need to clearly, before we start our experiment, before we start our data collection, we need to design the formats. Okay, and what are the variables are affecting our experimental study. It will be identified clearly, and we have to list it out in the table, and that table is to be prepared, and then we need to take that tables for the data collection. Okay, that is called the that also to be done in the research plan. And also what are the statistical approaches we are using, what are statistical methods we are using for the analysis of this data, and also what sort of graphs we are expected to draw. All the things have to be need to be planned or to be put in the research plan. Okay. Then the eighth and the last step of the research plan is, if you are before we start the research, we need to, I told you that we need to carry out some pilot study on a smaller sample size. Okay, that also to be reported and in the research plan. Okay, and also the time, cost, budget of the research project. Okay, as I told you that the time is also most important for the research, as well as the budget is also most important for the research. Okay, these two things also to be clearly with respect to all the resources of the research have to be considered and evaluated the time and cost for each activity of the research and the resources. Okay, so these are all the 8 points are expected to be put in the research plan and is to be prepared, and it is to be circulated among your guides, your colleagues and senior professors in your domain at the various institutes, research institutes, to gather to modify the research plan which you are considered for your research. Okay, so students, please take the research plan is one of the important document, has to be prepared by every researcher in the beginning of the research. Okay, the research plan and the research design, these are the two preliminary documents have to be prepared with respect to your research. Okay, is it clear? Okay, then we'll discuss about I told you that after the research process, I told you one day I will be in depth clearly discussing about the content of the thesis, content of your research thesis or the content of your research. Okay, so please all MTech students, and for your MTech thesis also this is most important, the contents of your thesis and the content of the research scholars who are pursuing PhD also, it is almost same, also almost same. Okay, so please everybody note down these important points with respect to your research report preparation. Okay, take the title as research, the content of the research report, content of the research report. Okay, in this, okay, you need to define a a clear title for your research. So don't think that the designing the research for the research topic is so easy. Okay, take an example of mine. Okay, I wrote nearly 10 to 12 research title with respect to my research. Okay, and I all the 12 titles have written, and I sat with my research guide, and also I sat with the other IIT non-IIT professors in my domain. Finally I identified, in the beginning we identified 3 titles with a research guide. Then I took these 3 titles to the senior professors who are experienced in the research domain at the IIT, professors who are known to me, and we discussed. Finally we selected one research title. Okay, so the research title which is being identified, it must reflect the whole gamut of your research study. Okay, it must define the whole research. The title only 2 lines. By reading the 2 lines of your 3 lines of your title, the examiner or the person who reads your research will come to know that what the thesis consists of. That is the significance of defining the research title. Okay, then once the research title is defined, the whole the research process, or the 3 years or the 4 years or 5 years which you have spent for your research studies, okay, which is in the form of 300 pages of report, has to be concised, or should be written very small, 2 to 3 page or 4 page maximum document. That document briefs out your research, whole research. That is known as abstract or synopsis. Okay, that is to be put in the beginning of your research report. Okay, then we need to put the third item, is the first one is the definition of the title of the research. The second one is the abstract is to be prepared. Third is the content of your thesis. Okay, the content of your thesis. The content of the thesis includes the first one, the first chapter. Every first chapter you need to write down introduction. The first chapter is introduction. So introduction is about the research, covers the what all the areas you have considered in your research. You need to explain about all the concepts, ideas about your research area. For example, take down my research title. My title of my research is the design and development of supply chain architecture and performance evaluation of the network. So this is what the title of my research, using particle swarm optimization. Okay, once again I repeat. So the title of my research was the design and development of supply chain network architecture and performance evaluation of these architectures by using particle swarm algorithm or using artificial intelligence tool. So this is the title of my research. See, in the introduction I need to write about supply chain. Okay, the supply chain networks, supply chain architectures, and also I need to write down about the all types of optimization tools, optimization classification, and also I are expected to write down the algorithms, artificial intelligence, artificial algorithms. See, the introduction covers all the domain of the title of my research. Okay, so the introduction has to be, and also should be given a reference of some of the research papers, also for the definitions or the algorithms or the tools in the first chapter. Okay, the very next chapter is the literature review. Okay, the literature review, as I told you that if you are an MTech guy, you are expected to write down, you are expected to collect nearly 20 to 25 of the literature review papers, research papers. If you are a research scholar, minimum 100 to 150 papers you need to identify, you need to review the literature of the research domain. Okay, all these have to be reduced. Each paper has to be reduced 4 to 5 lines or a paragraph 10 lines maximum. 10 pages of the research paper has to be reduced to 5 to 10 line of the paper. That is known as the abstract of the paper. Okay, the abstract of the paper should be such that it should have the problem, it should have the objective of the paper, it should have the tools being used, and how he has attained the results at the end of the research. All these things to be explained in 10 lines of the whole 12 pages of the research paper. So like this we need to write down for all 60 or 100 papers of the literature review. Then we need to identify the literature gap for our research problem definition. Okay, so then the third chapter should be the research problem and the research objectives. When the problem is being identified, okay, then we need to state the research objectives, and repeatedly I am telling the research objectives should be maximum 3 to 5. 5 is the maximum research objectives. Okay, well, so now we discuss about the fourth chapter, discuss about the methodology. So the methodology or the approach or the steps, okay, we need to describe in the fourth chapter along with the flow chart. Okay, the methodology, the research methodology has to be discussed in the fourth chapter, not down. Okay, it has to be explained in the block diagram or in the flow chart. Okay, since the broad area selection until you get the results in your research, so you need to define all the stages or the steps involved in every stage of your research in the form of flow chart or in the form of flow diagrams block diagrams. You need to explain your research methodology. That is the fourth chapter. Then fifth chapter is the data collection. Fifth chapter is the data collection. So the data collection, and also I told in the research plan that we need to design the formats for the data collection so that we cannot eliminate the any data during the study, because sometimes we may expect some of the data after carrying out the experimentation. If the data are not available, what will you do? Is it possible for you to carry out once again the literature review? Literature experiment, where you have spent lakhs of rupees in the preparation of specimen, the time, the experimental, the machine hours, with all sophisticated equipments, test rigs. It's not possible to repeat the experiment. So that's why before we carry out the experiment, we need to design the formats of data collection. Okay, so once you prepare the data collection, you go and discuss with your colleagues, go and discuss with your professor, your guide, and go, if possible, go and contact the senior experienced people in IIT to whom you know in your domain. Ask them, is the table is sufficient to collect the data after the experimentation? So like that you should do the research. Okay, design the format for the data collection. Okay, so these are all the things to be designed in the fifth chapter, that is data collection. Okay, and then we need to go for the experimentation, collect the data, tabulate the data. Okay, and the some of the data may not be matching. That is called as the data filtration. There are many techniques in the statistical analysis. Okay, the some are the data because of the chance, so there might be variation. How to eliminate that data, that all this statistical procedure will tell you. But whatever may be the thing, you need to collect the data, or whatever the experiments or the whatever the gauges which are using, they may be the dial gauges or the information display dial boards. So you need to record the data whatever with respect to the experiment. So then after data collection, we need to use a lot of formulas, and we need to analyze, we need to calculate, and again the results have to be documented in the table. And also there also you need to design how the results have to be tabulated properly. So how to take the average, how to take the mean, how to take the standard deviation, okay, how to find out the mode. All these statistical parameters have to be discussed, okay, while taking the results of the tabulation. Okay, these all the things have to be clearly, the data collection tables, formats, data collection, analysis, the formulas being used, or the algorithms are being, all the things have to be in detail to be discussed in the chapter 5th. Then chapter 6th tells you the results, what the results which we have obtained in the analysis, okay, have to be discussed, or the results have to be interpreted scientifically. The results have to be interpreted scientifically. There should be logic. There should be logic. Whatever we write, whatever the interpretation of the result is being done, it should have certain proofs, certain logics for the interpretation. Okay, we need to refer the graphs and interpret. We need to refer the table, we need to interpret. We need to percentage error, we need to interpret. We need to percentage accuracy, we need to interpret. Okay, everything is to be supported by the data which we have collected in the results. Okay, the results and discussion to be extensively. This is what the very important chapter of the research. The interpretation plays a very crucial, important role in substantiating your research objectives. So keep in mind that your results and discussions of the research should match to the objectives which are kept in the mind before you start the research. Okay, that all the things to be done in the chapter 6, and the 7th chapter is the conclusions. Okay, the conclusion should be written in 2 to 3 pages of your research. What is the outcome of your research should be explained in the chapter 7th. And 8th is the future scope of research. In what way the other researcher can continue your research work, that is to be defined in the defined in the future scope of the research work. That is the last chapter. Okay, then we need to write down the what all the research publications you have done in the conferences, international conferences and national conferences. There's this first category of conferences, and the second category that you need to write down what are the publication in international journals and national journals. That's also list has to be provided. And also if you have got the award in doing the conferences, that has to be also to be written at the end of the research report. And also if you have obtained any patents and other things, that all to be written in at the end of the chapter. Then you need to write down all the references which are used for your research study, 150 papers of references which are actually used in your research, that all to be standardly formatted and to be put in the last chapter of your research. Okay students, okay, today I discussed this very important with respect to your research methodology subject, the research plan, research design and the content of the research report. Okay, I hope it is very clear, okay, how to prepare the research plan and research design, and also I hope it is clear the content of your MTech thesis and the content of the PhD thesis. Okay, take down the questions. Okay, what is research plan, and identify in what way this research plan helps for the new researcher. Then second question, identify the contents of the research plan and explain its importance. Third question, what is research report? What is research report? Identify all the chapters or the contents of the research report and describe in detail the significance and importance of each chapter. Okay, so in this, for this question you have to start from the title of your research. Okay, keep it in mind. Understand? Start from the title of the research report. You need to explain your abstract, title, abstract, contents, and also the last references, publishing, everything is should include. I don't want you to eliminate any bit of the content of the research report. Okay, this is by the experience I am telling. Okay, this is experience, because the experience I am telling you that all this should be reflected in the report of the research. Okay, all the best. See you guys.